Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Happiest CEO. Today we have a very special guest. We have Pete Evans, who many of you know, of course, and he's a celebrated chef, but he also has had a lifetime of looking into wellness to optimize his life, to share the knowledge and the findings that he has found over the years. He explored nutrition, lifestyle, daily habits, all sorts and shapes of health and wellness and vitality. And in this episode, Pete shares his journey from the kitchen to the wellness advocate, the philosophy behind it, and some guided approaches to nutrition and practical tips. But we will see where we get to today. Welcome, Pete. So excited to have you on the show. I'm really, really grateful that you made time for this. Thank you.
Oh, it's great to be back, mate. We haven't had a good conversation, I think, for about 5 or 6 years. And yeah, g'day to everybody that's watching or listening too. Great to be here.
Yeah, we bumped into each other and did actually some filming about six years ago or 7 years ago, even. It's certainly a while ago. And gee, I mean, the pandemic unrailed us all, I felt, and I certainly sort of fell into a very different mode, which was also good. But it's certainly nice to feel a bit more normality slowly, and the new normal, sort of like,
You know,
and whatever that means.
no comment.
Okay, okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah, no, and this wasn't not a trigger hook or anything like that.
No, I know. I'm playing with you.
Yeah. Hey, Pete, I've never actually asked you how you got into wellness, because I know that you had a really renowned restaurant and that you had some collaborations, and that's how you started sort of like out and became well known to start with. But what was your trigger to sort of go further than just hospitality?
Oh, great question. It goes back to when I was 19, actually, and I was running my first restaurant down in Melbourne, and I ended up having a haircut at my local barber, and he had a book sitting on the bench in front of where I was getting my haircut, and it was Tony Robbins or Anthony Robbins's book, Unlimited Power, and he was running late, about half an hour late. So I was sitting there, I picked up the book, and I started reading it for half an hour. It was just one of those,
Yeah.
I guess, synchronistic moments in life that really just changed so much for me, because I read it for half an hour and I was just so overwhelmed with what I was reading because it was so new to me. And if you've ever read that book, Unlimited Power, it's basically talking about the potential of human beings in all aspects of our being, our belief systems, our diet, our fitness. Just, yeah, it really spoke to me at that particular point in time. And anyway, I had my haircut. I went to the bookstore. I bought the book. I devoured it over the next 2 days. And then I bought his subsequent book, Unleash the Power Within or Awaken the Giant Within. I always get those two confused.
Yeah, right.
And I devoured that. And then he was coming to Australia to do a 3-day talk. And I was living in Melbourne at the time, and he was doing it in Sydney. And I booked a ticket to go see him. And those 3 days, listening to him and others up on stage, and just the excitement in the stadium, if you want to call it that, or the conference center, was just electric. And I adopted a lot of those learnings that he was teaching at the time. And it really taught me so much about myself, facing fear, setting goals, understanding our belief systems, where our limiting belief systems are. And he also included diet and nutrition and movement, breath work, and things like this. This is going back, wow. I'm 52, so over 30 years ago. And I changed my whole life after that weekend, like completely. At the time, I was drinking a lot. I was taking recreational drugs a lot in the industry that I was in the chefing world. And I stopped all of that. I adopted a vegan lifestyle because that was what he was promoting at the time. Vegan, vegetarian, fit for life was the book that he recommended. And I went on this journey. I started studying different types of meditation, transcendental meditation, Sri Chinmoy, binaural beats. This is going back some time. And
wow, that's amazing. It's been around for a while, eh?
Yeah. And I was you could say, obsessed by what was possible. And so much of it resonated, and so much of it gave me such great clarity to understand who I am. The only part of it that didn't really work for me was the vegetarian vegan approach. And I know it works for a lot of people, but for me, it didn't. And after adopting that and having that as a belief system that I need to be vegetarian slash vegan, and it taught me to be very careful of absolutes. Because as I continued down that path, I felt really good for the first year. Then it was this steady downhill decline to where I was even more unhealthy than I was previous to going to the Anthony Robbins and learning this sort of stuff when I was just on a standard Australian diet. But I held on to that belief for so long, like, oh no, the vegetarian veganism is the way of the future. It's got to be the one. Until I let go of that and started eating meat again. So that was the incubation or the catalyst for me to be interested in this space. And I think I got a little bit, what would you say, disappointed in that journey around the nutritional side of things. And it was very humbling because during those 3 or 4 years that I was doing it, I was telling everybody to go vegan and vegetarian. I was one of those people.
Exactly.
And
missionary.
It was a very humbling experience to go through, and I'm grateful for that because it's nowadays I choose not to tell people what they should do, and I had to learn the hard way, and that was a great lesson. So I got disenchanted for a little while. I went back to an old lifestyle, sort of, you could say, standard Australian diet and partying and going through the motions, so to speak. And it took me another 10, 15 years to really get the invitation again to explore nutrition and health. And at the time, I'd been building my way up the ladder, so to speak, of the chef or the restaurateur world, the culinary world. And I met my current wife now, Nicola, and she was reading a book called Primal Body, Primal Mind by Nora Gaudas, and she invited me to read it, and I read it, and it just made so much sense. But there was part of me that was still a little bit like, ooh, is this going to work? Because the time before didn't. But it made so much sense to me. So we adopted it as husband and wife, and the kids put it into their dietary regime as well, if you want to call it, or principles. And we all flourished from that. And it took me about a year before I started promoting it, because I was hesitant to promote a dietary approach because of what had happened before. And this time what I did is I started to interview people in the health space, doctors, scientists, people that had recovered major health issues from adopting an ancestral way of eating, or a primal way of eating, which is basically pre-agricultural, mimicking our great ancestors, hunter-gatherers, but also when people used to eat seasonally and from the ingredients that were local to them and seasonal to them. And the more I went down that rabbit hole, the more I was, I don't want to use the word convinced, but curious to learn more. So for the last 15 years, I've been going down this deep rabbit hole of wanting to understand more and more about it. And to this day, I believe it is one of the best tools that we have for long-term regenerative health. One of the tools. We have many tools, the products that you offer and others offer into the wellness space, infrared saunas, ice baths, breathwork, meditation, movement practices, behavioral practices as well as all the other pillars of health. And I do believe that food can be one of the lowest hanging fruits, part of the pun, for that transformation. And what has solidified it for me is I've been eating this way for 15 years, and so has my wife. And I didn't get that feeling of greatness and then decline like I did previously 30 years ago. This time, what happened was I got to a place of, I guess, vi- vitality, and it
Yeah.
didn't decline, except if I varied from certain lifestyle choices that we just spoke about. Then I would see I guess, an imbalance, and I would identify what those
Yeah.
imbalances were or what caused them for me. And it could be traveling, it could be staying up too much, it could be taking on too
Yeah.
much work, it could be, um,
Yeah.
yeah, just insecurities or doubt or whatever it is in my own expression of creativity that can cause these imbalances, so to speak. So, yeah, 15 years later, I'm still eating this way, and it seems to be one of the tools that has really, really benefited me and many others in the space.
Yeah. That is so cool. That is so cool. And I relate to that journey of finding something and wanting to convince everyone, especially the family and friends and anyone that comes across and say, "Oh, I have the solution for your problem. Listen to me. This is it. You have to just eat vegan." Or for me, it was raw vegan. You just don't cook anything. Don't cook anything. Not even the water. Like it has to be all raw, and you will just lose weight, and you would all your allergies will go. Whatever it is, right? Um, but 15 years, that's very decent. There's no, that doesn't feel there's a rubber band sort of like effect, a bungee effect there. Um, I I noticed you didn't use a particular label. Like I've multiple books of yours, and often it has keto in it, but you didn't use that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, you could use any terminology you like, and I mean, how it was introduced to myself and Nick was
Yeah.
primal body, primal mind, and it was a paleo approach, but it was a ketogenic paleo
Uh-huh.
approach, or a cyclical, or a non-stringent version of a ketogenic diet. So be metabolic,
Yeah.
metabolically flexible in your approach, and when I started on this journey, it was small amounts of meat, lots of vegetables, and fruit per se, but still in a ketogenic or a mildly ketogenic state. The Over the last few years, it's morphed more into a more carnivorous approach using fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, or plant-based ingredients as a
Yeah.
supplementation and not the whole focus. And that seems to be what my body really thrives on. So I would say 95% is meat and seafood, and the rest is local, organic, seasonal fruits and vegetables. And without the fruits and vegetables being the focus for me, which it was 15 years ago. And everybody is different, and I just want to just say this, that for some, a complete carnivore diet for a period of time can be hugely beneficial. And I know people that adopt a plant-based and vegan lifestyle as well, and they seem to be thriving too.
Yeah.
So I never want to deal in absolutes anymore. But yes, you could call the
Yeah.
way that I eat would be a Paleolithic or paleo ketogenic ancestral diet, leaning more into the carnivorous side, which is why it sort of seems a little weird to give it a label, so to speak. But just real food.
Yeah. 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 That makes sense. Yeah. As little processed or not processed at all, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I love organ meats. I love eating nose to tail. I love shellfish, oysters, mussels, prawns, different types of fish that come from the ocean or the waterways, and yeah, and obviously some great wild meat as well as wild seafood too. I like to have a varied diet. I mean, I just picked up some sausages this morning from my local butcher at Cabarita Beach after my surf, and he just made some goat sausages, goat merguez. Merguez is a traditional lamb sausage, and I'm like, How did you make these? He goes, well, the goats were really lean, so I put in some lamb fat into them so that they're nice and juicy and flavoursome. And merguez generally is some paprika and some chili and some cumin, or all these beautiful Middle Eastern spices or North African spices that I'm excited about tonight. And I get excited about every meal every single day. And we generally once or twice a
Yeah.
day. I made some beautiful chicken liver pate a few days ago, and that was my breakfast just then, on some gluten-free seed crackers, just organic chicken livers with some miso braised onions folded through it and then pureed, and it's lovely and pink. And because I just had a surf, so I was a little hungry when I got home at 10:30. I'm like, I'm gonna eat that pate for breakfast. It's just so I love the organ meats because they're just so nourishing, and I feel great.
Yeah, wow. And you're a great communicator. I can already like I feel like, oh, I want to be there. That sounds amazing. So you really, this is really not only your passion, but it's such a gift of how you also can communicate the beauty of food like that. And I found that you do that really beautifully in your books, not only in text but also the pictures that come with it. And it really helps, I think, to give people access. Now, something that I would love to hear from you, because I know you went a little bit deeper with, and we can come back to the journey, of course. But while people sort of started to, I guess, mimic your eating, like how does emotional eating, and maybe you want to just talk about your own stuff. It's certainly something that I can see within myself, within my community, that at times when stress is high, when something doesn't work out, um, emotions, I guess, guide our choice of food, right? How do you deal with that, and how do you explain that? Because I found that is probably the number one that I see around that really derails people. It's not so much habit, as much as it is like there's something else there.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful question, and it's a big question, and I don't know
Right.
whether I'll be able to answer it succinctly, but because again, everybody is different, and everybody's level of
Yeah.
stress and what stresses them out is very different from one to another. For
Very
some,
different, isn't it?
like I
Yes, yes.
said, I went for a surf today, and other people would be stressed going into the ocean. I know lots of people that just will not go into the ocean because that creates fear
Oh,
for them.
sharks.
And for other
Right.
people, that's
Oh,
their ultimate joy is to go out there. And it was interesting where
yeah.
this morning when I pulled up to the local break, there's been two shark occurrences in the last 2 months there. One person got chomped on
Yeah.
the
Wow.
arm, and the second person just narrowly missed getting eaten by a great white, took a chunk out of his board. And I was speaking to a fellow there this morning that was there that morning a week and a half ago when the great white struck this guy's board.
Yeah.
And he was out there, and he saw it all happen. He was swimming and just came in and just missed it. And he was telling me a story that a few years ago he actually had a great white come up to him and bump him while he was on his surfboard, and he
Wow.
pushed the board into this great white's nose. But he was out there this morning having a swim. 2 weeks later, a week later, after the sharks, hanging out in our local break, and I use that as an example because he's like, "Have a great surf, mate." I'm like, "Yeah, thanks for the great stories. Thanks for the great stories before I'm about to go out there about the sharks." But
Yeah.
if we can identify what our fears or insecurities are, whether they be
Yeah.
relationship insecurities, financial insecurities, or fears, self-worth or self-love insecurities,
Yeah.
and the list goes on and on. Then we have the invitation in which we can sort of take a deep dive into what they may be for us. Why do I have
Yeah.
this? Where did it develop from? Was it ancestral? Did I learn this belief system from my parents or my community or society or
Yeah.
education or an experience that happened to me when I was younger and I didn't know how to process it? So I still hold on to this
Yeah.
every time that trigger comes for me. So the reason I'm explaining this is I think once we can identify where our potential or possible insecurities and fears may be, then we can
Mm.
go through the process of, I don't like to use the word work through them, but I'll use it in this case,
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
least to identify it and then go on a journey or an adventure to understand where they came from and then how to resolve them using whatever tools we
Mm.
have available to us in this realm. Then what that potentially can do for us in regards to emotional eating is we can get to that state of of contentment and neutrality in all aspects of our life, so that we aren't triggered by external forces. It's all just our perception anyway, to then not fall back into and rely on that comfort eating or that emotional eating for us, because the food's not the
Yeah.
issue, as you so eloquently put out. It's our inability to deal with current stresses that are happening in our life, which then triggers us to then adopt eating the tub of ice cream, for instance, or the bag of chips. It's so my um, one of my passions and curiosities is finding out who we are as an individual on this journey of life, and then identifying what those perceived weaknesses are in us. And even weakness isn't the right word, but maybe where we're out of harmony in our ability to stay grounded and centered in all types of situations. Obviously, we have fight or flight. If I was out there and a shark was swimming towards me, I would engage my flight or fight, as that surfer did by putting the nose of his board into the shark's nose to piss it off. We have that built-in fight or flight response for a reason. It's just whether that is turned on every single day for these perceived stresses around us, and that's what can cause
Yeah.
imbalances for us.
Yeah. And I found, I don't know if you, from your perspective, this has improved, like the options that we have to actually deal with that have certainly improved. Well, we live in a beautiful, like the northern rivers are probably full of people that can help you, and there's all sorts, for all sorts of needs and ways of looking into that and moving through that. But yeah, I feel really grateful to live at this time. I certainly, if I would talk to my parents, and part of society probably as well, is like it's not as well known, it's not understood, and maybe also not too close to really how they would operate in terms of I want to have the best life, like I'm worthy of living a life similar to what I actually can see online. And I think one point that I recently have been making is that because we actually get exposed to other people's lives through social media and more real documentaries and just the abundance of information that's out there. Sure, there's a shadow side of that, more than one. But when it comes to actually unearthing that, wow, these people live a very desirable life, there is actually not much difference between them and me. It's just the types of decisions I make. And the book of Tony Robbins that you were talking about, I guess is one of those. They give you a lot of pointers. Change your attitude, change your your mindset, the rhythm that you do. Be aware of this and bring a lot of consciousness, I guess, to your life. And I certainly have seen over my sort of health journey over the last 20 years that it's become more and more common that people just accept that there is an opportunity there. And I think that's exciting. And you really easily explain sort of the emotional side of things, and I do believe that's a massive part of society's issues. But nowadays there are also lots of people that understand that too as practitioners and actually can help through kinesiology, through traditional Chinese medicine, whatever. Like there's so many different things. So it's great that things are changing, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I love this. And my invitation to people that may be going through these sort of, if you are having these emotional stresses in your life, or repeated pattern behavior occurring, is to be curious. Just like diet is a tool, and as you again so beautifully mentioned, there are so many other tools out there for us to explore, especially in the northern rivers of New South Wales, or
Not quite representative for the rest of the country, I know.
pretty much anything's available to us. And whether it be
Yeah.
kinesiology, as you said, or NET, behavioral therapy, talk therapy, meditation, vipassana, dark rooms in overseas retreats. We have psychedelic retreats all around the world that are legal in certain parts of the world. We have microdosing of psychedelics, again, within legal parameters for people. And then there's float tanks, there's body work, there's the list goes on and on and on. And
Yeah.
what I when people come to me and say, "What should I do?" I would say,
Yeah.
what I like to say is, I would be curious about all of it, because a psychedelic experience for me might be so life changing, which it has for me in the past. But for someone else, that might not be the best tool available for them at that particular point in time. For them, it might be just going to a retreat for a week or a couple of days and being around like minded people. And for others, it might be going camping in the bush with their loved ones or even by themselves to just be immersed
Yeah.
in nature. And for other people, it's to go see a professional counselor that specializes in whatever it is that you may be going through at the moment. So I never,
Mm.
I would just be curious about it all. And if one doesn't work for you, and work's a shitty terminology, but if one doesn't resonate for
Yeah.
you deeply and you find the
Yeah.
change is needed, that's great, because then
Yeah.
you can tick that off and then try
Yeah.
something else. And if that
Yeah.
again isn't resonating with you, try something else. And what I love about that is that one that didn't resonate for you then, you might be able to come back to that in 5 years, 10 years, 20
Yeah.
years and go, oh, maybe that one is the key for me now to unlock where I'm currently at. And instead of just dismissing it all or just focusing on one thing like diet, yeah, so just be curious about it all, because every single person on this face of the planet is unique, and every single one of us has our own talents and gifts to share. And for some, it could
Yeah.
be listening to somebody play some music, which gets them into a state of ecstasy or something that can change the vibration in themselves, you know.
Yeah.
And for others, it could just be having a great chat with somebody, and in that chat, the answer arrives or lands for the person that needed to hear that conversation at that particular point in time. I never underestimate the the small chance encounters or conversations or synchronicities in life that may seem very, very minute, but can hold so much weight and profound
Yeah.
wisdom to take you on a very, very different course in your experience. And yeah, that's all I'll say.
That is so beautiful. And you would get this probably on a daily basis. But every now and then I see old friends, old people, like people who used to work for me or that I used to work with or that I somehow encountered. And it's that thing, you know what you said to me 10 years ago? And I really sort of dismissed it. But then sometime I just reflected back on what he said and I had a go at that. Or, I looked into that. I read that book. And, he gave me this book and I read it not for 5 years. And I looked into it. It's like, oh my God, and um, yeah, not to underestimate what change or, I guess dynamics we can sort of kick off for other people by just being truthful and what we believe in whatever it might be and offering that view, that point of view. And people might oppose it in the moment, but later on actually realize, wow, that's the next key. I feel there's a progression of things, like what worked maybe 5 years ago doesn't anymore. But obviously as well, I wasn't quite ready to do that type of thing. I wasn't interested in it. I didn't, whatever it is. And it's fascinating, I think, how we all influence each other and, hopefully normally to the better.
Yeah, and in the same thing, we're all mirrors for everybody. You are for me,
Yeah, yeah,
I am
yeah.
for you, and whoever's listening, and whoever we meet.
Yeah,
And yeah, never underestimate, even when our judgment comes into play. You know, if you're
yeah,
out at the shopping center and you're looking into somebody else's trolley, without judgment, you can go, okay, well, that's one way to experience life. I'm grateful that I get to witness that and observe that.
yeah.
Great,
For me, yeah,
great, like fantastic, great. I choose not to go on that path, not because I feel superior or judgmental
Yeah.
about it. It's just like, great, everybody's on their own path, and that's a reaffirmation for me to be on this path. This feels right for me at this particular point in time. But I'm always, like you started off, and I talked 15 years on this journey. Now I eat more meat than I used to 15 years ago because I'm flexible in my belief system and
Yeah.
always self-analyzing without being fanatical about it, but
Yeah.
just curious about it. Like, very curious.
Yeah. Yeah.
My wife and I are about to do a 3 day minimum fast next week. We've just decided that last week, but like, we should do a fast, and so we're going to do
Yeah.
that next week, and we'll see how long we go for. Without any
Yeah.
expectation to be like, geez, I've got to do my 5 days because I saw somebody else do 5 days, and they really benefited from 5 days. We just let it
We should do
go.
6 instead. Yeah.
Trust our intuition. For some,
Yeah.
5 days could be awesome. For others, 5 days could be not what the doctor ordered.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, my organization is definitely a sort of bit of a testing ground on that. And when it comes to tolerance, and just different views, I think it can happen that when you look at the CEO, you think, oh yeah, they're this or that and the other, and there's an image out there. But I always try to keep it really real and say like I'm definitely not perfect. I make mistakes and all the rest of it. And one thing I expressed that is there was a time when we have party night Friday night with the kids, which normally means we have some sort of homemade pizza, some music, and a special drink like bubbly apple juice. Like it's really really low key, right? They're all most of them are under 10, but when I didn't have the energy to come home and be the fun dad, I would go to the I think liquor store next door and get a can of Coke, like the normal Coke, and that I know that's not great for me, and I know that when I go at work to work and people would see that, they would like probably some would judge the hell out of me, but I actually did that as an experiment. Like, well, it gives people permission to talk also about the things that they might be a little bit uncomfortable with, and so I learned actually to I mean, what's good and when does it start to be bad? Like, a little bit better in the bad section. Is that good? Like at one stage, and I think what I just want to say is like I ended up realizing like you just can't judge. Like you don't know the circumstances, you don't know the whole experience. And when you see someone's trolley, like you say, um, I just refrain from thinking like that because it's not helpful. It's not helpful for me because I do a separation to other people. And in the end of the day, looking more for the common grounds is really what in our organization works way, way better, and bringing people to to the values that we can share. And the rest, it's up to them, and us, like, we also individual. And it's unlikely that that's a person or a group of people share everything, because at the moment where you discover something new, you're out of that group to a certain degree,
Yeah.
and progress really is cut off at that moment, because then you're not like everyone else. And this is even true for the closest people, like your partner. They will come up with ideas, right, that you might not subscribe initially, and then you realize, well, this is the best thing ever. I certainly see that all the time, so I really work on that to be open to it, right?
Yeah, my daughter's grandfather just passed away this year, and he was a wonderful
Oh,
man.
sorry to hear.
And I think he was 94 or 95 years of age, and he smoked every day, drank
Wow.
every day,
Yeah.
and it really made me think about. It came to me when you talked about drinking the Coca-Cola, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I know people that, and you hear the stories of people that just eat organic and doing everything right to be healthy,
Yeah.
and they end up with
Yeah.
cancer or fucking they die.
Yeah.
And then you have the other example of somebody just smoking, drinking, living their life. And the
Yeah.
thing that really re- the thing that landed with me with observing somebody like my daughter's grandfather was he was so authentic in who he was. Like, he didn't, ever since I knew him, he was the same person. And just so you knew where you stood with him and who he was. And it really got me
Yeah.
thinking about, is the potential secret to longevity, apart from food and lifestyle choices, but is it
Yeah.
when we show up in our true nature, no matter if it pisses anybody else off or they love you because of it? And it's been something I've been really contemplating over the last few months. Is that the secret sauce? Because I heard a story about there seems to be a lot of young people passing away unexpectedly these days, in their 30s, in their 40s, that are healthy and fit. And I wonder, I was having a chat with somebody the other day, and they're like, a friend passed away and did everything right, ate well, trained well, just clean living, but had a heart attack at the age of this. And obviously people can come up with their own conclusions to that. And I don't like to come up with those sort of conclusions, but I asked you, I said, do you think your friend was living his authentic self? Do you think
Yeah.
by trying to do everything right, was that really that person's authentic self? Or was it because they were fearful of, if they don't do everything right, then they might not be perceived in a certain way? And sometimes I see that
Yeah.
with parents of children, and the parents have discovered this health journey, and they they can sometimes go on this journey of just wanting to be right and do everything by the book to be healthy, and then they train their children into that world as well. And I have a question mark over that, because I'm not saying it's wrong or right. It's just, is that who you truly are? Is
Yeah.
and that's a very, very deep philosophical question, especially around the health space, because when we go onto social media, we've got people pushing every supplement there is. You've got to have these, and then you've got to be eating this way, and then you've got to be soldering and ice bathing every day to
Yeah. Yeah.
you have that contrast therapy, and then you need to be doing this and this and this. And it's like, wow, there's so much information out there. Is this creating more disharmony in oneself because they set an ideal of something from what they see in somebody else to emulate, instead of just
Yeah.
going along with their intuition of who they are and what they want to experience? And I'll
Yeah.
use the example, between my vegan years and the paleo years, I owned a nightclub in King's Cross with my business partners. And I lived that lifestyle of a nightclub owner in King's Cross. I got to experience that, and I dove headfirst into that reality, into that experience.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that in my own. And if anybody, people are astounded to go, oh, you drank that much, you took that many drugs, you partied like that. I'm like, yeah, I'm so
Mm.
grateful for it, because it taught me so much about myself from experiencing that. I didn't deprive myself or deny myself that experience. And I'm not telling people to go out there and drink and take drugs and party at nightclubs.
Mm.
But that was my journey to understand what I really like to do. And people often these days, they ask me on social media, do you drink? I'm like, what does it matter? I never answer, because it doesn't matter what I do. And yes, I enjoy a tequila or a whiskey or a gin and tonic from time to time.
Mm. Mm.
But I don't want to give permission for other people to either
Yeah.
go down that path, but also it's irrelevant whether what I do in relation to what you do. Right? It's
Yeah.
and I think that can be a trap that people can fall into, going back to, I've got to do everything right. I've got to do it like Sebastian does, or Pete does,
Yeah. Yeah.
or Dave Asprey does, and I'm grateful that there's everybody out there expressing themselves.
Mm.
But yeah, I'd put a question mark over all of that about, what does long-term regenerative health mean for you? And
Yeah.
do I still want to have my can of Coke every week? If you do, if that makes you happy, do it.
Yeah.
Do it. And don't feel guilty about it.
Yeah. It's the guilt, isn't it?
Because then if the guilt comes in and then that, why do I feel guilty about myself? What I'm doing something that I want to do. Own it. That when people ask me these questions, I'm just like, fucking own it. Own your choices and don't play the victim to yourself or to anybody else, or wanting to set yourself up to meet other people's expectations of who they think you should be or you should be to meet their expectations. Because again,
Yeah.
that can create disharmony in yourself, which then will lead to the eating of the shit food, possibly, which might be the perfect medicine for you.
There you go. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and yeah, I totally relate to that because who are you really pleasing by being perfect, and what does perfect really mean? And
Well,
yesterday's perfect was vegan. Now the next one is paleo. Who knows? It's whatever works.
I'll throw
Definitely.
this one back at you. I believe everybody is perfect at all times in their life.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I relate to that.
And that can be a hard one to grasp sometimes, because people like to say they're imperfect and they make mistakes. They say, well, you've never made a mistake in your life because it's gotten you to where you are now to realize what those choices have
Yeah,
led to or created. And then it's your perception whether they're positive or negative. And if we can take away that judgment of ourselves, positive or negative, and just look at our experiences and believe that everything has been perfect for us along this journey, even if we get to a state of illness or health that isn't where we would like to be, possibly, that can be the catalyst for change. So it has been perfect to get to that point. If so, if you're like, I know people, the diagnosis of cancer or this, that, and the other was the perfect catalyst for me. I'm so grateful that that happened, because now I've
yeah,
gone on a journey, not just to do with diet, but to question everything in my life and then work back. How did I create this in the first place? How do I create something new in the present and in the future? Yeah. If we
yeah.
created it, we can create the opposite or a different path. It's like, so yeah.
Definitely.
So I got a bit
Yeah,
deep.
yeah. I relate to that totally. I won't go into the story, but yeah, I had something happening because of a choice and medical complications with 16, but it really put me onto a very different health path because I realized my health is fragile, and certain choices make that more resilient or not. Fun fact: you were mentioning a dark room, and I remember talking. So I have roots in Germany, and bit of a guy that's a bit far out there, organic shop owner in Hamburg. He was getting married, and he he told me, to get ready, I went into a dark room for about 10 days, just meditating and doing certain things. They give you food. And he said, I had all these visions of bicycles. I just always thought about bicycle. It was just one of those things over those 10 days that I just couldn't shake. And I just thought, what does it mean? And he came out of this dark retreat and shared with the people that were facilitating it. And that said, funny you say that, because this used to be the part that he was in the spaceman was actually used for storing bicycles for almost 100 years. But
Wow.
man, it's a very spiritual experience, feeling the bicycles that used to be there.
That's so cool. I haven't experienced the dark room retreat. I've spoken to a few people that have gone on that adventure, and it's what I've got back from them from having a chat was it's so profound for them. It's what happens, I think, after between 48 hours and 72 hours, give or take, as DMT is produced. So instead of having to take DMT or 5-MeO DMT, endogenous DMT that's already in us at all times is just released more so from the light deprivation, and that's why people have such radical epiphanies or remembrances or understandings in those experiences like people have when they take psychedelics. It's just, we already have all of the answers to all of our questions in us always.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
just, how do we access them? And some people do it through
Exactly.
dark room retreats, psychedelics. Some people do it through meditation. Some people do it through fasting. Some people just do it from asking them the intimate questions of life. And the answer is there always. Ultimately, my perception is we already know all of the answers to our questions. It's just, are we willing to listen to ourselves for some of those deeper, darker, or deeper, more personal questions?
Yeah, yeah.
They say
I'm getting that.
the best doctor is the one that shuts up and just listens, because the patient will eventually tell them why they're sick and how they got there, and then
Yeah.
they have the answer to reverse that or to move through that. And I quite like that idea, that, and not to discard different therapists like we talked about before, or doctors that are specialists in their own field, but I quite like that inner knowing.
Yeah, and it's profound. I've had lots of different therapists and coaches on the show, and I came to the conclusion that there are great tools out there, and they really help. And I use a couple of coaches for various things, and I find they sometimes just have that little bit extra to, or give you just that little bit nudge in the right direction to help you unearth something. And in the end, it's often not significant in comparison to what I made out of it. Like there are certain things that really emotionally sort of like, that was really not great. Like, really simple one is that, like I got from my mom through my childhood, don't rock the boat. Like don't steer conflict, and there's certain generations back, like reasons for that. Like I can see that, I know that about the people that lived before her, that it was similar and so on, and it was handed down. And thank you, that's all good. Like opportunity to grow, but you could say, okay, it has been there for a long time in that family. That's a behavior that has been practiced, really hard to shift. But I found, and I know many people have shared different sort of issues, if you want to call that them, or like insights on this topic. And it really seems that once you're there, you can actually take it and you can talk about it. And I think if you have, I feel it's possible to shift most things, as horrendous as they might be, and as difficult. And I guess it's just like a word of sort of like encouragement that if you facilitate it well, if you're held by someone, normally the body only gives away, or you talk only as much as you feel safe. You slowly get out of that. But at the end, it is definitely possible to move to stuff. That's what I've seen. And some of the stuff I feel not comfortable. I couldn't have done that, I think. But then if you're in that position, you just want to get out of that suffering, right? I'm just sort of backing up what you say about, like, you just keep talking and you unearth in your own pace to the point that you can actually get through that, and and make the obstacle your way, and therefore get stronger and feel better after.
Yeah, as I said, there are so many gifted and talented people in this space, and they can help clean up the key to your lock. You hold the key and you hold the lock. It's just, sometimes it might be a bit dirty, and the facilitator can take away some of that gunk so it fits in a little easier and unlocks that inner wisdom. That's such a powerful one, that don't rock the boat, that was ancestral. It probably goes back to, I don't know if you've got Viking ancestors or something like that. Don't rock the boat. Yeah, we fall in the water, you fall over, you'll die. And that's what the
That's right.
rocking the boat in the cold water. Don't fucking rock the boat, and that gets carried ancestrally down to you.
Yeah.
Sebastian, to be a good boy, don't rock the boat. And you're like,
No, better not.
But I don't want to go on that path. I want to go on this path. No. You got to be a good boy. Don't. This is the path, and that's such a big one for a lot of people. Is mine was, little children should be seen and not heard. That was my grandparents.
Yeah. I have heard about that. Yes. I didn't grow up that way.
That was but that was so fascinating because it led me to becoming who I am these days and exploring what does it mean to be seen and heard, you know, and I
Mm.
created that journey for myself to, I guess, rewrite that ancestral um, uh, belief system, because I do believe kids should be seen and heard because they need to express. You know,
Yeah.
it's just who are we to know what that question from a child, if they're not allowed to ask it or they're too fearful to ask it, what that can mean to them on their journey. And obviously, it's always perfect, but those those little sayings that we just take for everyday speech can be so profound when we identify them, because our
Mm.
vocabulary is so powerful. It's such a powerful tool. It's why they call, the words as spelling, they're spells. And when we hear them enough from a
Right.
very young age, from our parents or our community or our
Mm.
society,
Yeah.
it becomes who we think we are to fit in. So
Yeah.
we don't rock the boat or we fit out. And you don't want to be the black sheep of the family. You know, your uncle was a black sheep of the family. And look what happened to him. He ended up in jail. He ended
Yeah.
up
Yeah. Yeah.
this or that. You're like, okay. Did he rebel so much that that was the reason? Yeah. Anyway, I digress.
Hey, did you know that there are some studies done that it seems that there's certainly a tendency within a lineage. Don't know how I looked into this recently, but it was about sort of families in the US and how some families just seem to are on a particular path, and it seems to guide them more to sort of like a more thriving way versus like let's say a way of struggle. And I'm amazed that I guess their tendencies and nowadays it's much easier to I guess jump out of it. So I'm in Australia for a reason, I guess, because I didn't want to be part of that fabric that I don't really that I don't really embrace, which is the German way of, which is a really logical way. There's a lot of structure, and I found that really really difficult. And maybe it's also parent stuff. It's like, well, over here they can't see me. Who knows? Even though I was an adult when I left, maybe I still had to, some get to terms with it, and that was my way. But I guess what I want to say is that it's so powerful to change the trajectory of it, or to offer a change of trajectory to children by changing your approach to how you maybe grew up and you didn't actually like it. Like, I can see myself, if I'm really under stress, I get into a quite authoritative sort of mindset with the children, but it doesn't work out most of the time. Every now it's needed if they run on the street, or if they touch something hot, sharp, dangerous, whatever. But overall, it's certainly not what works nowadays. And maybe back in the days it worked better and it was a different context. But
I read.
it leads me actually to.
Oh,
So you.
I'll just touch on that because it's such a powerful one. It's two people that I've interviewed many times, and one was a mentor and a facilitator. Talking about facilitators, he did a wonderful treatment. He passed away a couple of years ago. His name was Rudy Eckhart, and he wrote a book called The Truth of Love and Fear. And he had a wonderful kinesiology practice that he created uniquely with his tools. And
Huh.
and you'd see him, and the first session would be 3 hours. The first session would be 3 hours focused on one of your parents, or whoever was your main guardian as you were growing up. So it would be
Yeah.
dad or stepdad or whoever it was. And then it would be your mother if you had one, or whoever was that motherly figure in your life if you had one.
Yeah.
And then the third one, he would go into a particular current issue. So that was your 3 days sort of in a row or over a couple of weeks. And his book, The Truth of Love and Fear, I would invite people to purchase that if you can find it. He talks about the sort of the huge impact that we have as parents on our children. And another friend of mine called Martin Ball, who is a 5-MeO DMT practitioner or facilitator over in um, another part of the world, he wrote a book called Being Human. And both of these books really spoke to me in such a way, especially as a parent of young children. Basically, the underlying message of my interpretation of these works was your role as a parent is to provide structure and safety, whether it be shelter and obviously nourishment through food and unconditional love if you're open to that. and and that is pretty much it. Everything else, get out of their way and don't impart or imprint on them your beliefs about the world if you can help it. If you can
Yeah,
help
yeah, yeah.
it. It's like, let them have a blank slate as much as possible to create their own belief systems about this reality in which they're journeying through. And it's I've fallen so, as you said, you have the authority when that stress has come out and you do that. But it's been a wonderful thing for me to observe as a parent when I fall
Yeah.
back into wanting to instill my beliefs or imprint my beliefs onto them, because I catch myself. My daughter's now 19 and 20, so I don't do that anymore. But it was a
Yeah.
wonderful journey over their formative years to witness myself when I did step into that role of trying to get them to behave or believe in my beliefs. And
Mm.
as soon as I did, I'd go, "Fuck, you're doing that again." So as I went along further and further as a father, I really made the conscious choice and effort to not do that and just get out of their way and just let them be, and to discover everything that they need to discover in their own personal journey. And I think yeah, it's a big one, and I'm grateful for the words that I found in Rudy's book and also Martin Ball's book. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
On that, like for me, having, five kids and, the oldest is only 11, so still young, they're not on the screens, they're homeschooled anyway. But what I often wonder is like exploration is one thing, but then you interact or, children and young adults or teens interact with a social media which has a particular algorithm that serves you what you're interested at the moment. The downside in my mind is that it looks like this is what the world believes and thinks is right as part of this algorithm. I wouldn't even go as far as there's a hidden agenda or something like that. I would just say like just the algorithm alone will not give balance of view. It will just give the view that you're interested in the moment. So it will tell you this is normal. And then I guess similar, and there's an agenda behind that, is like education has a particular flavor. Normally it has to do with politics as well. And therefore you learn certain things and this is told to you that this is right and this is wrong. And I was wondering when you say, let them explore, how you make sense out of these things that are, in my mind, just so biased by the user or the system that it will create an unbalanced sort of like worldview quite quickly.
Yeah, a great question. Thank you. That's okay.
Doesn't have to be political, but like
No.
overall, like it's the system we live in, the society we live in, right?
What you just said, it feels like I'm a lover of really well-made television and movies. That's one of my passions is watching really
Same.
beautiful, created pieces of artwork through that medium, whether it be the stories, the direction, the acting, the costumes, whatever it may be, the characters. And one thing I've noticed, and I'll digress here a little bit, because the last 5 years I've really been the only books I've been reading mainly is science fiction books, but the science fiction books that I'm reading about the future were written back 80 years ago, 60 years ago, 50 years ago. So old
What,
science
like
fiction.
Dune and stuff?
Hmm?
Have you read like the whole Dune
Oh yeah.
15 books and all?
Jude,
Amazing.
Asimov.
That's the future in my mind.
But where I'm getting to this is
Sorry, yes.
is
Getting excited.
there seems to be always this recurring theme where parents are concerned about what their children are doing. That
Yeah.
in the 60s, it was when the kids were listening to uh, Elvis Presley or the Beatles. You know, that's blasphemous. That's the devil's work. That's this, that, the other. And
Mm.
now, like, we're in 2025 and we listen to a Beatles song, like, how could they ever have thought that that was wild, or Elvis Presley was evil, or
Mm.
this? Do you know what I mean? But at that particular
Yeah.
point in time, that was considered, oh, we're losing our children to that. Fast forward now, so many parents are concerned that we're losing our children to social media and this, that, and the other. And arguments can be obviously put forth that
Yeah.
genders, capture, privacy, the whole thing. You know, I'm not dismissing that, and I agree. But it was interesting. I was at an aged care home recently, and they had television on in the daytime, and in all the rooms that I was at, and I was in a room, and the daytime television was on, and we don't have free to air television, so this was quite a foreign experience for me to see what daytime television, mainstream television, is like. And it was fascinating to me because I observed myself being pulled into that realm of watching this
Yeah.
monotonous, whatever it is. And then I
Yeah.
started thinking about that. When I was a kid, I knew my friends' parents, they would watch
Yeah.
daytime television, and their grandparents would watch daytime television. This is 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Is there much difference between these days social media addiction to what it was 50, 60 years ago, watching daytime television and nighttime television? They're both screens giving us information that we choose to watch and get sucked into. I was getting sucked into the morning show the other morning, mate. I was like, what the fuck's going on with me? What the
That's
fuck?
very funny.
Like, I was
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
fascinated by it because it was like, because it was so different for me. But it's like, wow, I can see how people get sucked into either mainstream,
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
or children or adults into the social media world. And I put my hand up, I'm part of that system. And so to answer your question or to comment on it, when I believe everything is always perfect for us at any particular point in time, I don't see social media as good or bad. And that
Yeah.
if children are in it or out of it, either as good or bad. When I was a young boy, I would play Game Boys or Nintendos or whatever it
Yeah.
was back then.
Yeah.
And you could say that I was addicted to it, or I go get my pocket money, I go to the shops when I was a 10-year-old or 8-year-old, go to the Milk Bar and play the pennies or Galaga or these video games.
Yeah.
It made me happy to be doing that at that particular point in time. And 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 perhaps my parents or other parents would look at that and going, just that's just destroying their brain, watching the television, watching the screen, playing
Yeah.
video games,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. And even when I was 17, 18, 19 doing my apprenticeship, I would smoke dope of the night time when I finished work, and then I'd play video games as a 17, 18 year until 3, 4 in the morning, right? Smoke
Yeah.
bong, play the video games until I learnt that that was not beneficial for me anymore. Like, what am I
Yeah.
doing here? I was having fun to start
Yeah.
with. Now I'm in this addicted sort of process of just wasting my hours that I wanted to be spending doing other things in the waking daylight hours. So long answer, but I have complete trust in everybody's experience. I have trust and acceptance that this is here at this particular point in time and that we're going through this, and every single person and parent and child will have their own experience in this reality because it is a choice, even though it might feel like an addictive, an addiction for many.
Yeah.
But then, as a parent to our kids, have your social media, do whatever you want, and fascinating enough, my kids, they don't even use the social media. They're using other social media platforms that I don't even know about.
Very normal.
And
Yeah.
they
Right.
they show me. I'm like, oh, that's pretty fucking weird. Like, how does that work? And they're like, oh,
Yeah.
this is what we do. I'm like, sweet. This is what I used to do, And my parents would have gone, what? So they're just.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is, can we trust, accept, surrender into that, and letting go of control a little bit for the trust that that's the perfect journey for them to work out whether they're using it or not using it, to come through with greater life experiences than to choose different paths down the future. Because I'll just wrap up. Sometimes when we deny, when I was denied something as a teenager, that's all I wanted to do. Right? Because I was pissed off that I couldn't do it. I rebelled against that because my mates were doing it. And if my mum said, you can't do that, I'd be like, fuck, what do you mean I can't do it? So we end up rebelling against that. I did. That was my personality and nature, as you can probably tell.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's such a dance. It's such because everybody's different.
It's a dance, isn't it?
It's a dance, So I don't have any advice.
Here we go. But to me, what I found, and it's sort of probably a Steiner approach a little bit, is like diversions, I guess is the word. Like giving other options, showing actually all the other different things. And I always think about Pete Evans. I think about a half pipe in his backyard, and I thought, like, that's an option for an adult. But of course, you gave this option also to your kids, I'm sure, and probably many other outdoor activities, and that's certainly an inspiration to me to also not think, I know that you want a phone with 11, but you will not. Versus, like, yeah, you can, like while we travel, you can use an old phone to have that bit of an experience of that. Or, when I travel, you can text me a little bit with mom's phone, whatever it might be. So there's a little bit of giving in. And they're young. I know it becomes a very different force to reckon with when they get older. And then, on the other hand, it's like, and we can also do that. Let's do something else that is fun. And I think that's often forgotten, that that's also an opportunity, right? Like, rather than just saying no, it's like, yeah, no, I see your point. Just before we do that, let's also look into this, or how about we try this? And sometimes you strike gold, right? And I think that's okay, that you also sort of, I guess, lead and guide a little bit to give the kids options, so that there are more options out there. I certainly, it works for me.
Yeah, again, whatever works for you.
Right, exactly.
You're doing exactly what's perfect for you and your children at this particular point in time, with no judgment from anybody. Totally. Like me. You just be you, and then the kids will be them. And the optionality is so cool. And one thing we instigated, Nick and I, my wife and I, with children, it was every mealtime we have together. No television. Not that we have a television, but no phones, no this. We actually sit together. That's our foundational, non-negotiable experience. We eat together, without it being forced, because it's always been the way that we've done it. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
So that's the norm, without it being, we need to eat together tonight. It's like, dinner's ready. Let's.
I know. Yeah. And I visited recently a French friend who has sort of teenage kids, and he was actually in Hong Kong. It was quite surreal, but I visited him, and I saw his kids, and we shared a meal at dinner together with my oldest one, and it was just fascinating to see that there were certain things that it just became sort of the thing, like the way that they instigated this meal of everyone had their jobs, and that was accepted, because probably in the French culture there is that part of it. And the way that you serve and wait before you eat, small things, but if that has always been the case, then it becomes sort of a foundational thing of family, and I believe in that. Having certain rituals
There we
that
go.
if it explains properly, normally kids enjoy that too, and like that consistency of one thing that they know how it's done, how we do that together.
Yeah, it's a
Mm.
great word, ritual. Well done. I like it.
Thank you. Yep. No, slowly getting the hang of this English language. Hey, Pete, I've a few more questions for you. One is sort of like the more it's a common question that I ask our guests just because I'm so curious about what's going on, sort of in terms of your curiosity, but then also sort of I would love to ask you sort of the question what you at the moment into and sort of what your aspirations. But before I go there, if you could have a coffee or green juice or whatever you like to drink with anyone, alive or dead, who would it be?
Oh, that's
Right now? I'm sure
good.
there's so many, but like, who comes to mind right now?
The creator or creators of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, because
Right.
nobody knows who that person or people are. Yeah, and
Wow.
and and to think about that in this day and age, that something has been created that is had such a huge impact, and we haven't even felt it yet.
Yep.
That they decided to vanish from their creation. I can't think of. I mean, Banksy, the artist, is probably one of the few people, or one of the only people that I know that sort of did that, but still um, just remains aloof or anonymous. And yeah. So I've been in studying the Bitcoin space for the last 5 years, not the crypto space, anything to do with that, just solely on Bitcoin. And yeah, I find that such a fascinating story that someone can, a group or individual, again, people don't know, create something that has such a profound impact on humanity. And the reason why it was created, if you've ever studied it, it's mind blowing. And the fact that they did it anonymously, I just think is yeah, just brilliant. So that is who I would have a I'd probably have a uh, tequila with.
Here we go. Just out of interest, why do you think this is so? Why are you so curious about that? Like, thinking about that, like, oh yeah, sure. I mean, people vanish in history anyway, but you find this behavior, and it's the behavior, isn't it, that you find particularly interested? Such a big impact without taking credit. Is that what it is?
Yeah, especially in this day and age.
Yeah.
It's it's the classic ego death.
Yes.
Classic ego death. And one thing I'm really been focused on for the last 15 years is solutions for humanity, not being forced upon anybody to choose to take it, or forced to take it, I should say, but just that there are, I believe there's always solutions to everything currently. And if certain things get too top heavy, more solutions will arise. And work from Nora Gagaudis, Weston A. Price, others in that
Mhm.
space that brought ancestral primal diets to the fore. I'm so grateful for them for doing that. And then in relation to Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto for creating this as a solution for the corruption in the financial sphere, the financial it invades every single possible territory on this face of the planet, the sheer corruption of that system. But there is a solution for those that are willing to learn and study, like learning to study about how our bodies work with nutrition,
Mhm.
learning to study how there is another solution out there for people in regards to long-term regenerative wealth, instead of a system that is constantly devaluing our precious time and energy and our work
Gotcha.
so that things cost more and more. Bitcoin is created so it's deflationary instead of inflationary. So the concept behind Bitcoin and the concept behind sound money is that things should become cheaper through through the input of time.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Sure.
Once you see it, you can't unsee it, and the definitions for that, and the way that it has been created, you know, it turns everything on its head that we thought was just normal. And as more and more people discover why this is a tool for long-term regenerative wealth instead of
Right.
losing our hard-earned money every year, I think it's going to be a transformative. It already is a transformational tool,
Yeah.
but it's like on the outskirts, still like primal eating or ancestral eating is. Only a certain percent of the population want to or have been exposed or are curious about it. And I've always said, imagine if everybody actually was taught ancestral eating or how our bodies work, real nutritional training, the rapid change that we would have as populations around the world. It would be and that's what I see with Bitcoin as well. Will it take 100 years for this to
Yes.
catch on? Will it take 50 years?
Yeah.
Will it take 5 years? I don't know. I
Yeah.
love the mystery in it all. Same thing with ancestral diets. I don't know. Maybe there'll just be a small percentage of people that will live disease, illness free,
Yeah.
and the majority will continue down the current path that they're on. So be it. Respect everybody's choices and
Yeah.
journeys. But there are always solutions.
Good point. Hey, what's the best advice you think you ever got that's still relevant to you today? Or maybe not relevant to you today, but that was the most impactful one, maybe.
My Year 7 maths teacher said to me, Pete, you will be great at anything you put your mind to and your
Great.
passion behind.
Yes.
And imagine if every parent said that
Yeah.
and the teacher said that to every child that ever came in front of them.
Makes me teary every time. Is like if parents don't believe in their children and don't give them a message like that, who else would? It is maybe the teacher, but there are not many in that league for a child that really have that impact with their word. And I found that it's so significant to know. And I really watch myself when I talk to, well, not only kids really, but also adults, because I think, as we said before, right, this little thing that you sometimes say to people, and I received a similar message at one stage, and it really changed my life, because there was sort of hope or confidence that, well, if that person says that, then maybe it's true. Yeah.
I always hoped that he said it to every child that was in his class, that I just wasn't unique. I'm like, fuck, dude, that's a pretty powerful message you gave me as a random maths teacher when I was 12 years old. Like, fuck, I hope you did that to everyone.
Hey, what's your favorite book? That's another one. I love books, and I found that when you simmer it down, it's like what's a book that you really enjoy, and probably at the moment it will be probably Bitcoin, but like overall, what do you think is just like an awesome book that you would still sort of have on your bookshelf today?
Lord of the Rings,
Oh,
Tolkien.
yeah.
I don't think anything can compare to that. Other than Dune series from Frank Herbert. Those two books, Tolkien and Frank Herbert, their observation of humanity is more profound than any spiritual book that I've ever read.
It strikes me that Lord of the Ring, if you go all the way back to the Silmarillion, that's almost like a creation story, right? Versus when you go into Dune, to me, that's looking at the future, really, really topical at the moment, because you have thinking machines as part of the mix if you go deep enough into Dune and what comes out of it. And you know what I found fascinating? You have like the first couple of books where stuff happens, right? And then they fast forward 15,000 years and they talk about this event here, but from their perspective. And it's so distorted. And like, I was there. It was different. Why are you guys taking this as gospel over here? When really the reality is, but I think this is a story of humanity then in between. That is also really true, because who knows? So long ago, right? They're great books.
Oh, yeah. I've learned more from those two books than any other book that I've ever read.
Probably because the answers are all in you anyway, right? Triggers probably just
Correct.
anyway. Hey, I won't keep you much longer. Just last question is sort of what are you focusing at the moment in your work? I know you're running retreats, and I just assume you're probably still writing books and get the knowledge out there. But is there any particular sort of focal point for you at the moment?
Yeah, I'm wearing a couple of hats. I've just written a book on Bitcoin and
Oh wow, yes, you did.
ancestral
Oh,
diets
cool.
called the Primal Code. I have a new book coming out called the Maha Cookbook in November, in which is Make America Healthy Again or Make Australia Healthy
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Again. So that comes out in a couple of months. And my wife and I are running wellness retreats, cooking retreats, fasting retreats, women's retreats, men's retreats, Bitcoin and wellness retreats. So yeah, I spoke at a couple of the Bitcoin conferences this year in Prague and Vegas, and yeah, just joining those two worlds.
Yeah.
And hopefully the intention is for the health conscious people to understand what Bitcoin is, and for the Bitcoin people to look after their health.
Yeah.
They sort of go hand in hand, and both of them allow, if we look after our health and our diet, especially, and the other tools that we've spoken about, we can remove ourselves as much as we can from the current medical pharmaceutical systems.
Yeah.
It's not a blanket statement, but it definitely can improve our chances of not going into those systems. And then Bitcoin can remove us from,
Financial.
as I've discussed before,
Yeah.
the corrupt financial system. And like, you ask a wealthy person that's sick what they would like health.
One thing, right?
And most people want to accumulate more wealth, especially if they're healthy, because they want to live for a long time. And to do that, you need, at this particular point in time, a way to do that, which is currency or store of value of our wealth.
Yeah.
So I find those two worlds fascinating to intersect, and we'll see what happens in the future.
Very cool. Pete, thank you so much for your time. Really love what you're doing. I can see that you just come from a passion to help other people, or to open doors and their mind for it. And really appreciate all your work, and I'm always inspired to see what you're doing next. So thanks for being you.
You too, brother. I love you, and love to everybody that's tuned in today or listening. And till we meet again.
Okay, meet again.